Hello, everyone. Today we are looking at Revit's interference checking feature. Now, many of you might already be aware of the other ways to coordinate models. You may be using Navisworks or BIM 360, which is great. However, not all projects are in the cloud, and maybe the only product you're using is Revit. Here are the topics for today. We're going to do a quick rundown on the differences between Navisworks, BIM 360 Coordinate, and Revit when it comes to interference checking. We'll also look at how to find clashes when we run the interference check tool in Revit, and a quick look at the reporting options that you'll have at your disposal. So projects that are hosted in the cloud, as many of you may know, if you're using BIM 360, you can use BIM 360 Coordinate. There are a wide variety of file formats that can be included, more than just Revit models. You can tell it which models to check, and then clashes are found automatically by BIM 360 Coordinate. You can then assign those and share them as issues with the team. There's some automation involved there for notifications and such. There's no need to send your models back and forth between firms or offices when you're doing it this way, because all the models are hosted in one place, and that's BIM 360. Plus, you don't have to be a Revit user in order to perform these tasks. Now, in Navisworks, you can still work with all those different types of file formats. Clash tests are set up manually, however. There's a nice module for that inside of Navisworks known as the Clash Detective. We just have to set it up ourselves. You can check for specific elements or the entire project if you want. You have the option to store your models in BIM 360 or in your local environment. Again, you do not have to be a Revit user to run Navisworks. Now in Revit, you can only check one model against another Revit model. So it's only Revit files. Like Navisworks, you can still check for specific elements if you want, or you can check entire models. Interference checking does work across linked models, and you still have that option to store the models locally or in BIM 360. Normally, when it's just Revit against Revit, though, the models are liable to be in your local environment, on a server, etc. Now, this is a useful way to do some pre-coordinating when hopping between models while you're designing. Plus, it can be a great way to get the models ready for those larger review sessions. All right, let's take a look. Here we are in an architectural model. It does have a mechanical model linked in. And we're ready to run our first interference check. The interference check tool is on the Collaborate tab. And what I'm going to do here is keep it small and simple. I'm just going to check the roofs in the architectural model. On the left here and on the right, I'm going to choose my link file and then check it against mechanical equipment. So this will keep it kind of short and sweet to start with. And the interference report here is showing me that I've got 3 clashes. So there's 3 pieces of equipment that are interfering with the roof in the other model. As you select elements in the interference report, they will highlight out in the model. So just visually, I can tell that here's the 3 pieces of equipment that we're going to be working with. We're going to fix these. and I'll show you how to do that. So once we locate the clashes, we know where they are. I'll save my model real quick to save that report, and then I'll switch over to the mechanical model. So in the mechanical model, now that we're aware of those three interferences, I'm just going to switch to a plan view. I decided to just use the roof because I have a good look at the equipment. I'm just creating a temporary section here, and we'll look at each one just to get a quick look and see how it's interfering, and then go from there. So you can see this piece of equipment, it is clearly intersecting the roof. I'm just going to use the offset from host property to raise it up. I could use the move tool, and I'm just pretending here that there's going to be some structure underneath it to support it. So we're just going to move it out of the way. Now I'm just going to repurpose my section. Instead of creating extra ones, move it over to the other piece. This is a fan that is up at the roof, but it is also too low. Again, I'm just going to move it up. And in this case, since I am moving mechanical elements, I always double check to make sure that any connected elements also maintain their integrity. So here I just manually reattach that piece of duct to the underside of that fan. We'll do this one more time for the other piece of equipment. Again, I'm just going to repurpose the same section. I like to see those interferences while I'm working on them. That's why I like using a section view. You don't have to do it that way. Once again, we'll just use the offset from host property and raise that up. Notice that all the connected elements maintain their integrity there. So the mechanical models are really good for that. All right. So we've made our changes. Now we're going to go back to the architectural model and review the report. So we're going to go back to interference check, but this time we're going to show last report. As you can see, there is some reaction there, but all we're going to do is choose the refresh option, and that'll run the check again. And if the box is clear, that's how you'll know that you have successfully addressed those clashes. Now that was a small run. We're going to do a new run here. This time, we're going to check the walls in the architectural model against the duct that's in the mechanical model. So we should get a longer report. We won't address them all. We're just going to pick one this time. And as I'm looking around here, notice that as I select, I can't really see the highlighting happening in the view. So that could be an issue if you want to look for your clashes. So what I'm going to do is just change the discipline for this view to mechanical. That'll give me some transparency, and now I'll be able to see a little bit better. This is just one way you can hide elements if you want. Use your section box. I just chose to change the discipline in this case. But now I can see some highlighting. I can also use the show option in the report, and that will start cycling throughout all the views in Revit. So there's a piece of duct. We'll address that. I'm not getting a good look at the wall that it's intersecting with, so I'm going to hit the show button a couple of times to change views. And once you decide on a view you want to use, then you can close the report. I'm going to go with the roof view again, like I did before. And I'm going to create another temporary section. That's about where that intersection is. I just need a better look at the wall and from another angle. So there's the duct down there on the first floor I'm going after. Just to double check it, we can open up the report again, and there it is. So I know I've got the right clash that I want to work on. And in this case, since I'm still in the architectural model, I'm just going to place an opening in that wall. So however you would do this to make those openings for duct that's running through them, I'm not going to worry about exact dimensioning on this or insulation or clearances. All I want to do is remove the clash. But now I can go back and show the report again. That clash is still in the report. All I need to do is choose refresh again. And since I added the opening, that clash has been removed from the report. So just another small example. And what else can we do here? Let's take a closer look at the reporting options. So still in the architectural model, let's show the report again. This time we're going to choose export. And this will save the report as an HTML file. And then we'll take a look at the report. So wherever that is saved, we'll just go out and open it off our desktop. And here's what the report looks like. It is kind of raw. It's not going to have a lot of formatting, but it will show you the exact items and what they're clashing with. And what's important here to notice is that the element IDs are included in this report. So we could use this as a checklist and use those element IDs to locate each element as we run down the list and address all of the interferences. All right, so to do that, I'm going to use a tool that's on the Manage tab. It's called Select by ID. So with those IDs that are in the report, we can find those elements based off those IDs, and then you can use the Show button, which will cycle through Revit's views. So if one view you're not satisfied with, then you can cycle through just like we did from the report. And that's how you can locate those. This comes in very handy in a mechanical or an electrical model, for example, one that has a lot of components in it. Having those IDs will really help speed up this process so you don't have to hunt and peck to find those clashes. All right, so let's review what we just did. We began the task by running an initial interference check. That tool is on the Collaborate tab. Next, we reviewed the report and used it to highlight clashes so we could locate them, and we did that visually. If you can see them right away, great. If not, then you can use the IDs to find those elements in the model. Then we switched to the other model and moved the equipment to fix the interferences on the roof. After that, we went back to the architectural model and refreshed the report, which cleared that up, and it showed that those clashes were fixed. We also exported the report when we ran our second one, so that we could give it to other designers or just use it as a checklist, since it has the element IDs readily available for you. You can also see the IDs in the report dialog if you expand on the plus sign for each of those clashes. The ID is in there, but I think having that report separately helps, because then you have it in list format versus having to go find that ID. It's a little easier to see. And then we use the Select by ID command, which is on the Manage tab, so we could find those elements by their ID. All right, a couple of extra tips for you. Start small. at first. If you're not used to using this tool, or if this is the first time you're hearing about it, start small. You can do one check for the entire project if you want, but you don't have to. I prefer to break it up and run the report multiple times and just check for certain things each time. That way there's not, a list that's a mile long, which may seem a little overwhelming at first. But if you want that report, then it is a good idea to run it for, check for everything, which means you'd be checking all the boxes. Then the report will be rather lengthy, but at least you'll have it all in one. And then you have those element IDs in a list format to go and fix all your clashes. All right. Well, that's it for the interference checking tool. It is pretty straightforward. It's very easy to use. Here are some of our resources that you can take advantage of for self-help. Our YouTube page, you'll find the recordings for all our previous webcasts, and this one will be available shortly. Plus, we have plenty of articles on our blog at hagerman.com and even more content on our customer hub. But that's it for this webcast. I'd like to thank you all for attending. I'll take a moment here and address any questions that are in the chat window. I only see one question so far, so if anyone does have a question, feel free to add that. This question: is the mechanical model linked to the arch model? If so, then you do not have to reload the link after making a change. Yes, the mechanical model is linked in this case. However, to avoid getting the warning, if you try to open a linked model while the parent's open, Revit's liable to force you to close one or the other. So really there was no reloading the way I did it here today, because I closed the architectural model, then opened the mechanical. When I was done with the mechanical, saved it, closed it, and then reopened the architectural. And reloading is then automatic when you do it at open. So if you're running extra sessions of Revit maybe and you have both models open, then yes, you would go to manage links and reload the linked model. So I just prefer the original way, which was close one, open the other, etc. All right, next question. What version is Revit interference checking available? As far as I know, it goes back to the early versions. I recall it being there as far back as 2008 or 9. It's always been there, but the fact that Navisworks has always been around, that has been the go-to tool for clash detection, even though Revit had it built in. So I really don't know if there's a version of Revit where it wasn't a feature. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that whatever release you're running, chances are that feature is there for you. There is a question about the audio. Someone is having trouble hearing. So yes, once this is recorded and posted, then you'll be able to rewatch. And hopefully you'll have your audio fixed by then. So I apologize for that. Can you also detect clashes within the arch model? Absolutely. You don't have to switch like you saw me do on the right side of the dialog to the linked model. You can check for elements within the same model. Absolutely. That might come in handy for those of you who maybe your MEP model has multiple disciplines in it. Mechanical, electrical, and plumbing might be all in the same model. Maybe you're doing work sharing. And so it would all be contained in the same model. So definitely you can do that. All right, so selecting elements by ID, will Revit select them in the link model? No, it will not. So you will need to be in the model where that ID exists. So if you're in the arch model and you try to select by ID using the ID for, say, some duct, it'll come back and say not found, because that ID technically is not in the linked model. And when you look at a report, if you were to export that, since they are broken into columns, then it'll be easy to tell which ID is in which model. But yes, you will have to switch to that model in order to use the appropriate ID. All right, I'll wait a little bit longer here, see if there's any more questions. Okay, don't see any other questions coming in. If you do have any other comments, you can send them our way. And if you have support with us, we can always address them that way as well. Again, thanks everyone for attending today. Hope you find this helpful.